Hi, I'm Lisa Garr, host of The Aware Show. Would you like to create more energy, cleanse toxins, or correct your digestion and conquer infection all at once? Well, it all starts with your digestive system. Even 30 different brain chemicals are manufactured in the gut. So, would you like to learn how to restore that inner ecosystem so you can restore your overall health and vitality? Joining me is Donna Gates. She's the founder of the Body Ecology system of health and healing and international best-selling author of the Body Ecology diet, used by hundreds of thousands of people worldwide for the past 25 years. Welcome, Donna. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for doing this, because, you know, it's something we've talked about doing for a long time, so
Yes.
here finally at last we're doing it.
Yes, and it is my goal to get your information, which is so great and so vast and so right on, in one place so people can really digest, for lack of a better word, all of the information that you have and really repair, because everything begins with the gut.
It does, yeah.
So how did you get started into this? Did you have a healing crisis of your own?
Well, yeah, as a kid I was sick, but I grew up in the South and we had a lot of fried food. But, you know, really I remember being a little kid and feeling very, very early on that I was here to do something. And I think it's important for parents today to realize that their children may have that same feeling inside of them, that they're here for a purpose. They're not here just to learn and grow, have fun. But there's many people on the planet right now that are here to do something that makes the world a better place. And so, you know, growing up in those days, parents didn't really notice about their kids having special needs or needing to be awakened. You know, it would have been great to have some mentors, but they weren't available. And as a matter of fact, growing up in the South was kind of backward for me, because I saw different things. I didn't see things the way other people saw them, and I always felt sort of like an outsider, different.
A little bit different.
And I would say things to people, and they'd raise their eyebrows and roll their eyes like I was crazy. And even, you know, even with food, I had this real strong connection to food, and I'd watch how people would eat. Like my grandfather, for example, would literally cover his food with pepper, and so the plate was black practically. And I'd say, Papa, don't do that. That's not good for you. But, I mean, what did I know? I mean, I'm just a little kid, right? But, you know, years later, I found out it isn't good for you. It actually, though that pepper inflames the gallbladder. A little bit, so teeny bit's okay, but a whole lot is not good. But, you know, I just sort of seemed to know that there was this connection between our health and food. And every once in a while I'd ask people, and it's, oh, no, if your skin breaks out, it has nothing to do with what you're eating. And that actually happened to me. When I was 15, my skin started breaking out. So my mother took me to the dermatologist, who put me on antibiotics at first, eventually birth control pills. In those days, they didn't know about birth control pills, and so the first women that went on them had huge, huge high doses, and many of those women are dead now today of breast cancer.
Wow. So,
but they figured out it was too much, and they reduced the dose pretty quickly. But you know, I was never well. I mean, mostly I had digestive problems. But growing up in the South, we had fried chicken at least 3 times a week.
wow.
And we always put fat in things. Like, I love vegetables, but every vegetable had ham hock in it, you know. It's called fatback. And
Wow.
so now I know, from having had my genes analyzed, actually, that was really, really bad for me. So it's amazing my body did as well as it did. But, you know, by the time, after the antibiotics,
My goodness.
that was like the real downfall. After that, I was never healthy ever again.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story, because it shows that people can come back from any type of background or illness or bad habits that they have. You can actually restore, because if we could all look like you, that would be great after all our bad habits.
Well,
so
I am healthy.
Yes, you are. And we're going to talk about the testing too, which I find so interesting. But how did you discover that you had candida? Because you have been a huge voice in this country for talking about candida and how to heal it.
Well, as I went to college, and I thought I wanted to be a registered dietitian. I went through the training, graduated, went to work. I didn't actually graduate yet. I was about to graduate, and I went to work in a VA hospital. And they actually had me down in the kitchen loading the dishwasher in this terrible environment. I hated the feeling of the hospital, and I just knew it was not the place for me. So I went back to school and ended up, you know, changing my major to child development, which later on did serve me well. And plus, I was so always fascinated in human development. You know, how do we develop from the beginning of our life, from conception? So I got a chance to study a lot about prenatal developmental things to that. But I never stopped thinking about food. And so once I got out of school, I kept trying to find answers. So I did everything. I was so sick. I did raw. I did massive amount of vitamins, which was extremely expensive. I was macrobiotic for 8 years. I was vegetarian. Everything out there to do, I did.
You tried it all,
and it was good. It was good. It was good to do that because everything taught me something, and but nothing did it. Like I wasn't fixed yet. And so I was very fortunate to meet Dr. William Crook just literally, and when he had written a book called The Yeast Infection, The Yeast Connection, about yeast infections. And he was introducing that book at a expo. And I amazingly had time alone with him. We sat out in a fountain outside the expo room, and he talked to me for a while about it. And he said, this is a condition that we think is extremely prevalent and that we don't think there's a cure for it. And so I knew I had it. I had all the symptoms. What were some of those symptoms? Well, fatigue and hormone imbalances, and your skin breaks out and your digestion doesn't work. And actually, it's a condition that affects every single system in your body.
The overgrowth of candida yeast.
Yeah, it does. It's literally, which hopefully we'll be able to get into that in much more detail. But I felt challenged by what he said because I'd had all this training at this point, and I thought, well, there has to be an answer, and if there's a cure for it, I'm finding it.
Wow!
So I started doing his diet, and it was stepping in the right direction, but it wasn't close enough. And so I thought, I'm just going to learn everything I can about this condition, and take what I know about food, and try it. I even actually, see if I can figure out the answer. But I even went to Japan. I studied with Lima Osawa, graduated from her academy. She started macrobiotics.
Interesting.
But while I was there, she and her husband started it. But while I was there, I went to also study on the side something called kaiseki. It's like a very pure, high form of Japanese cooking, based on even more food as medicine. Oh. And people say all the time, food is medicine, but honestly, they really don't know what that means.
Oh, really? There's a whole other level.
So they're totally. And so I see that people do identify today more than ever the foods that are bad for you and foods that are good for you. They don't really know how to use that food as medicine. So I was very, very blessed to have that training.
What is the difference there? Is it different herbs and?
Well, I think the main thing is that you have to realize that every food has a positive and negative side to it. It may be good for you, and it may not be good for you based on what your needs are. And so, you have to see, here's what's going on in my body, and based on that, these foods work for me and these don't. Because, and that's why it's so confusing out there in the world today, because you'll have everybody saying, eat raw, that's best. Eat paleo, that's best. And then people are trying this and trying that. What they're not doing is knowing themselves and knowing what foods work for that condition.
So it's definitely not one diet fits all, like we're led to believe and we're marketed to about. So when someone takes a all fruit diet, and they might actually be allergic.
That would be a horrible diet.
It would be horrible for them. Wouldn't lose weight, and then they would say this doesn't work.
And if they have candidiasis, they shouldn't be eating all that sugar. A high fruit diet would mean they'd be eating a lot of sugar.
So does everyone have a certain amount of candida in the body? Does it just matter?
Well, it's interesting because in the beginning days, the medical profession would not accept that candidiasis existed at all.
Really?
No, because they said it's normally present in the body. And I even, had a few people like Dr. Andrew Weil who had helped me bring stevia. I brought stevia into the world. He was wonderful about helping me promote it, along with Robert Atkins. But when I asked him to endorse my book, he said, no, that's a normally present organism in the body. It's not a problem. But I knew it was a problem, and now I began attracting all these other people that definitely knew it was a problem. And so I basically started from scratch. I took what I knew about food and what I could learn about the condition, which wasn't very much in those days. Now there's amazing amount of research on candidiasis. And the medical profession is very, very clear that it's a huge problem. But, I put the two together, and that's really what became Body Ecology. But even that, Body Ecology is a system of healing, and it has a diet. But over time, it has evolved. And, as I learned more and was able to clarify things. Interestingly, though, I'm kind of amazed because 20 years later, what I said in the beginning was so accurate.
Yeah.
And it was, I honestly, truly believe, and I say this all the time, the hand of God is in this work, because something helped me put it together. And everything, like bringing in kefir, stevia. There's so many what I call divine arrangement or miracles around it happening. You know it's not you doing it.
I completely understand. So what the body ecology system is combining these different foods, systems, to get rid of candida in order to reduce inflammation. Is that basically the general overview of the body ecology diet?
Well, what is a system of healing? Well, Ayurvedic medicine is an ancient system of healing, and Chinese medicine is another one that everybody knows. And so those are kind of not accurate anymore today, believe it or not, because we are facing different problems that they didn't address. Some of them, like I think Chinese medicine is fantastic for understanding the adrenals, which we'll be talking about later. The herbs, their understanding of herbs to help heal the adrenals and tonic herbs and all is fantastic. That's the system I know best. But I realized that we needed a new system that was addressing our modern concerns. So that's when I say it's a system. It's
modern concerns being candida and other...
and the way we eat and all the toxins in the air and the stress that we live under today. I think there's always been stress on the planet for man. Every generation has had to deal with stress.
Yes.
But we have more stress. Life is moving faster for us than it ever has for man. And our bodies are really under siege.
Yes.
Pretty much.
And that can also cause inflammation as well.
Oh, it does. It definitely does.
So your perspective is that every single function of the body, whether it's clear thinking, whether it's aging gracefully, whether it's body weight, all relates to the gut. It all starts with the gut.
Even the brain, even how we think, even whether we're depressed. There's not a single cell in the body and any organ in the body that isn't influenced by what's going on in the gut. And you know, people have said forever, disease begins in the gut. But now we have the science like never before.
To prove that?
To prove that.
Yeah. What does that mean, disease begins in the gut?
Well, the gut's a toxic waste dump for most people, sadly, and they are constantly creating inflammation, and things are leaking through that are not supposed to into the body, causing inflammation, autoimmune conditions in the body. You know, it's where it all starts. And so my goal, you know, as I evolved again in my learning, I began to focus on the gut. That's your immune system as well. You know, if you're going to overcome a yeast infection, you have to have a strong immune system. You can't be feeding the yeast. You've got to have a strong immune system, and actually that starts in the gut too. 70% of your immune system is there if you have a healthy gut, and it's not there if you don't have a healthy gut.
Now, as well as brain chemicals such as serotonin, dopamine, those types of...
The brain chemicals that are made in the brain are used in the brain. But all those same brain chemicals are also made in the gut. So we have two brains in our body. We have the brain in our head, and we have the brain in our abdomen. I always thought it was interesting because in you know, Chinese medicine, in that system, we've got you know, martial arts and Aikido and Qigong, but they were always focused on centering this region of our body. It was considered like the stable, you know, you have to stabilize this part of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really, really true in food too. This is it. Like if you fix this part of your body, a ton of other things start working properly.
I really wouldn't have thought about things like skin is related to the gut and eyes are related to the gut and all of those different functions. I mean, even, you know, aesthetics are related to what is going on in your intestine.
Yeah, the fact, how do you look? Do you look tired? Or do you look like you're glowing and full of energy? But it's not such a complicated thing to understand because, you know, we take in the outside world by chewing it and putting it in our body, and it goes down through the stomach and into the intestines. But you know, those nutrients we eat, you know, everything eats. Everything on the planet is
Right.
taking in some kind of food source. And so if we stop taking it and we start dying, so we have to digest that food, and then if it is properly digested, it gets into the cells and it gives those cells energy. So no matter where those cells are, if they're in your eyes, in your brain, in your lungs, in your liver, they all need to eat. They need energy too. And so we get to choose what they're getting for nutrients.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the principles of the body ecology system. And one of them is the principle of uniqueness. What do you mean by that?
Well, that's kind of what I was saying before, is every single one of us is totally different. I've said that for 20 years, but now that we can have our genes tested, it's even more true. There's not a single person on the planet that's like anyone else. So you
Gene
can't,
testing. Tell me about that really quickly.
Well, I'd like to get into, talk about that more as we go
Yeah.
further along. But fortunately today, you know, there's three big areas of science. There's the gut and probiotics.
Okay.
And what the microbiome or gut bacteria are doing. There are genes, that's a big thing. And then what's called epigenetics.
Okay.
So, and then stem cells. You know, those are where most of the research today is really into.
Which is
those
exciting.
three new areas of new fields that have never been available to us before. So yes, you can actually take tests. You can, 23andMe is probably the one that's most commonly known.
Right, right.
It's a very inexpensive test, but they don't give you much information. They're not allowed to.
Does it give you your genetic profile? Or
It gives you, it tells you a whole bunch of genes that you have. Now you've got to go look those genes up. But you can do that by going to sites like Genetic Genie, and you can look at this gene and it says, oh, that's related to whether you're going to develop diabetes or not, or are you going to get breast cancer, prostate cancer. You know, there's a whole bunch of genes that are related to different conditions like heart disease and Alzheimer's and so on. So
and this test is called 23andMe.
that's
and
one. And then Pathway Genomics has one.
And you just send in a saliva sample. Is that how it works?
Just a simple saliva sample. And if your doctor is working with Pathway, he can get more information than you can. But I think it's absolutely an area that I want to teach a lot more about, so that people have this information, because that's, you know, it proves exactly what I've said for years. We are unique. Now, let's say you get your test back and you find out that indeed you have, as I did, the genes for developing diabetes. So I have a whole bunch of bad genes, actually. I don't make vitamin D properly. My receptor sites don't accept it. I don't make enough GABA. I do have the genes for breast cancer, which runs in my father's side of the family on a lot of women. And gosh, there's so many things wrong with me. And people used to say, oh, you must have good genes, and I thought I did. But fortunately, when I looked at the test, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm sort of a genetic mess. But the good thing is, through this path that I've found my way on, I haven't been doing any of the things to express the genes, and that's the important part. It doesn't matter. The genes are really rather unimportant. What's important, those genes are just sitting there waiting for a signal.
Right, yeah.
And so if you give them only good signals, you'll never get diabetes or breast cancer.
Yeah.
You'll make vitamin D, or you should take it, you know, and take GABA.
That's very valuable. So if you know that you have an issue with uptaking vitamin D, then you will then find the either intravenous D or liquid D that's based in an oil or something that your body will assimilate better.
Well, you know that you need more vitamin D than the average person. So if you read an article that says, oh, take 1,000 or 2,000 IUs a day, that's not going to be enough for you.
Right.
You're in the 10 to 20,000 IUs a day category.
Yep.
So it helps. And then if you work with somebody who's trained in what's called nutritional genomics, they can really, really pinpoint for you what you need to do. And oh my gosh, what a difference that makes.
How lucky are we to be in this time that
it is.
that all
it's
of
extraordinary.
science is available to us to really just know our body. I mean, we thought that the heart scans were a great idea. Now this gets into your genes, and it really can tell you exactly how to live to be 123.
Here's an interesting gene that a lot of people have, because I've been finding it in people when I've been testing it. Like my brother-in-law, for example, he loves coffee in the morning, but I found out when we looked at his genes that he doesn't, and he and I both, we don't clear caffeine. So there's a gene called the 1A2 gene, and if you have that gene, caffeine lasts in your body a really long time. So let's say if I drink some cappuccino at dinner at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, I'd be wired, and I wouldn't be able to fall asleep till 5, 6 o'clock the next day.
Wow.
And he, is doing the right thing because he gets up and he loves coffee, of course. He's not going to give it up. But now he knows that he only needs 1 cup a day. Now, the 1 cup a day is fine. But if you do over 3 or 4 cups a day, like the people who do it all day long,
it's toxic.
They're in trouble because those people are it will elevate their blood pressure and they're more at risk for like a stroke or a heart attack.
Yeah.
And so that it's
Because
just
of all
very good to know these things, and so you can say, okay, I'm only having 1 cup a day. I'm good.
That's so
great.
great.
Honestly, I never.
You can find out if either the paleo diet works better for you or a vegan diet works better for you.
And I'll tell you another big thing that's really important for information to get out there. There's so many people out there doing a very, very high-fat diet right now. Some of the paleo people and, even Weston A. Price, they recommend lots of butter and cream and lard and bacon fat. There'll be a few people that can tolerate that, but most people, if they do it temporarily, some people react immediately. Like I have the genes for not being able to do saturated fat. I'm an olive oil person.
Wow.
I'll tell you something about that. But so that's why growing up in the South with fried chicken and fatback and everything was terrible for me. Let's say I insisted, I believed that I should, because somebody told me that I should have cream and butter and duck fat and all that.
Right.
I would be destroying my body because I was letting my belief system or my mind or some person influence me.
And this
now
makes
I
so
know
much sense.
it's a devastating food in my body and many, many people. One of the things it does, saturated fat, is it actually opens, what it's doing is it's killing the bifidus bacteria and feeding a bad guy called Wadsworthia. And then he grows and inflames the gut lining, and that's a big problem, which I know we'll get into later. So the science says a high saturated fat diet creates endotoxemia, meaning gut toxins,
I was going to say, this is this can be a definite reason why so many people are struggling with obesity these days, is because they just don't know their bodies, and what they're putting in might have a completely allergic and toxic reaction.
Yeah, and I know we're going to actually go deeper into the whole issue of hormones and obesity and all that, and there's more to say about the genes when we get to that part.
So much more. All right, back to the principles of the Body Ecology diet. So we mentioned yesterday the principle of uniqueness, the principle of step-by-step. And what does that principle mean?
Well, we're kind of hitting on my favorite principles. The first one, the uniqueness, is essential for people to get it, that you do not listen to what everybody else tells you to do. But step-by-step is also a really important principle. I started looking at nature. I always like to see how nature's doing things. That's where I get ideas from.
I do too, yes.
And so I noticed that things happen in tiny little increments. Like we don't just suddenly have night and suddenly have dawn. It creeps up on us, and then the day gets brighter and brighter, and then it gets a little bit less bright, and then it turns into dark, but not suddenly. And I saw that principle everywhere, and I thought, like babies grow in the womb in tiny little increments. We get old in tiny little increments. So how does that apply to healing? And so that's where the step-by-step principle kind of came from, because, it's definitely where it came from, because I started realizing that, okay, what do you do first? If you're going to get somebody well, if they have cancer or they're already well and they just want to have a healthy baby, you got to start somewhere. So where do you start?
Right.
Well, the most important thing of all is you have to create energy. If you don't have energy because you have bad habits, like you're checking your emails late at night and you're getting all this light in your eyes and you don't make melatonin and you don't go to sleep, or you're watching movies, TV, all the shows on at night are very exciting. They raise your cortisol levels because they want you to come back next week and watch the next episode. But what happens is you go to bed with this energy of like high cortisol.
Flight.
And so you can't sleep really, not deeply, not enough to restore your body. So I am really, really, really big on having people look at your thyroid and your adrenals, what's going on with them, let's fix those. Let's look at your lifestyle, how are you are you sleeping well, are you eating foods like sugar and all that are jacking you up, and crashing you down, or like caffeine, so on.
You said that the immune system needs energy in order to heal itself.
Well, the whole entire body, the brain, everything needs energy. There's not a single cell in the body that isn't sitting there waiting for energy. They've got these little tiny energy factories in them called mitochondria, and they're waiting for food. So, and they have, like the brain has thousands of little energy factories in every single cell. So they really need to be fed properly. So yes, energy, that's first. But then what next is, the other thing, three things that are so key is you must conquer any infections in your body. They're draining your energy. So candidiasis. But what if you have a tooth infection or
infections you don't know, or you're
chronic,
managing?
low-grade bladder infection that a lot of women have. Right, you're kind of managing it. It comes and goes, not really getting rid of it. Viral infections like herpes are constantly have the immune system on alert, and that's a huge problem for people. They're beginning to realize that heart disease, for example, isn't caused by plaque. It's really caused by, well, yes, plaque is the problem, but what's really causing the plaque isn't the cholesterol. It's viruses and infections in our body causing it.
Wow.
So, so you've got to conquer the infections.
I'm sure we're under a constant viral load, especially with what we've seen in our flu seasons.
Because we don't have strong immune systems from the very beginning of our life. We don't.
Right.
And that's what Body Ecology is all about. So the third thing, create energy, conquer those infections. You've also got to correct digestion. And we'll go into that. We've sort of talked about that. And the fourth thing is you've got to be actively cleansing out toxins.
Okay.
Now, the body was designed to cleanse itself. Like we actually have, like some people buy automatic ovens that clean themselves. Well, our bodies automatically clean themselves, but some of us are very inefficient. They don't do that job very well.
Some of those pathways are blocked, right?
Definitely. And so that's another major area of concern. And I actually just finished a book on detoxification that's can be very cutting edge. Unfortunately, I tend to be a little too cutting edge, but I think there's a lot of people that are ready for this next new understanding of cleansing.
Yes.
And so that's very, very important to master the art of cleansing your body. And you have to help your body cleanse. You can't just rely on it and say, well, I have this cleansing system built into me. You can't do that anymore today. We live in too toxic of a world, and we create toxins inside our body all the time.
As I understand, there's 7 different detoxification pathways in the body, and at any given time, one or several of those could be broken based on not detoxifying.
Well, getting back to genes, many of us have certain genes that prevent those detoxification pathways from working properly. And those can be identified, and you can take simple supplements to fix them.
Wow, isn't
that
amazing?
A very simple fix for most of the problems.
And then you can detoxify all the toxic load that we get throughout our food system, air, stress, our own toxins that are developed inside our bodies through coffee. As you mentioned, there's funguses in coffee. Just breaks my heart. But there's different ways that the body, if you get it into its prime working order, you can detoxify those things out of the body and eliminate them normally, naturally, and not have to have the toxic effect.
Yeah, you've got to get your detoxification pathways open.
Working.
And there's an art to doing that, but it's a very learnable art.
Okay, we're going to learn it. Okay, now the other one is principle of balance.
Well, we just live in a world of balance. It's real simple. It's really, Chinese medicine was based on the principle of yin and yang. When I started studying Chinese medicine for years, I thought, try to teach it to people, and they couldn't remember which was the yang and which was the yin.
Yeah.
So I changed the words. In our system, we call it expansion and contraction. We are sometimes very contracted. Like let's say, you've been in a really, really stressful day, and now you're on the highway driving home, and there's all this traffic. You're contracted. So what do you do when you get home? You want to go in and have a glass of wine or a whole bunch of sugar, something to undo the contraction and this feeling of being uptight. So we have to realize that when we get ourselves in that kind of condition, we're going to start craving sugars and things that are bad for us. And a healthier alternative would be just have a big glass of water, or better yet, put some lemon juice and stevia in it. And then your body says, oh, okay. And then, of course, do something nice, like put on some music, sit down and rub your feet or something.
Yeah.
Your body, there's lots, meditate if you can do that at that moment. A lot of times you have to do dinners, fix dinner or something, but it's It's,
I mean, that's true. I've heard that women's cortisol levels actually rise when they come home because their second job starts. It's
Yeah,
the cooking, cleaning,
Yeah.
bedtime,
Yeah.
you know.
and everybody wants mom, and
Yes.
you need to connect with your children. Yeah, it's stressful. And then the other thing, so expansion is an example of being too expanded is when you eat sugar. Like, let's say you grabbed a couple of M&Ms because you thought, well, I need some energy. Well, for a little bit of time, your brain is going to secrete this substance called, a little area of the brain secretes dopamine. And then you feel fantastic, like you could conquer the world. But that's a temporary thing, and it's going to crash. And now you're going to go way, way down and feel really tired. So you reach for that again because you want to feel good. That's a natural reaction in humans to want to feel good. So we keep reaching for these things.
Yes, yes.
But what happens when we eat a diet with a lot of sugar in it, a lot of expansive foods, coffee, and drugs and alcohol are extremely expensive, whether they're recreational drugs or medicinal drugs. And so all those things which are too much a part of our world today, they keep us in an expansive.
Now, why is that bad? Why is it bad to be an expansive?
Too expensive because really good is balanced. You want to be in the middle. And if you eat right and do the things we do, you'll stay most of the time in balance. But it's good to know there's no such thing as always staying in balance.
Well, it's
There's
either
no
we're
way to
either
do that.
too contracted or too expanded, and the idea is to get somewhere in that mid-range. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
and in a person who's like always, like emotional and snappy, and a woman who's, say, about to have her period, she's way out of balance a lot of times.
Got it.
And she looks like it.
Yeah.
So a woman who's got healthy balanced hormones isn't going to be that way. She's going to be fine and normal, acting.
Flexible, let flow happen.
Yeah, so we're being jerked around by not understanding the principle of balance.
Great. All right, and the next principle is acid-alkaline. That's a huge conversation.
Well, it's very, very easy to tip our body into the acidic. All the things I just mentioned.
The contraction.
Well, no, they're different. Expansion and contraction is one thing, and you want to be balanced. Acid alkaline, you also want to be balanced, but toward the alkaline. Like, we need to keep our bodies more alkaline. It's very easy to become too acidic. Stress immediately makes you acidic. Sugar and coffee and alcohol and those are the things that when we wake up in the morning, we're too acidic. We wake up acidic. And so you need to know that. Like I always tell people in the morning, people get up and they have their bowl of cereal because that's what they've always had all their life.
Right.
Or, they'll have toast and eggs or something because that's what they want. But you have to give your body what it needs. And so when you wake up in the morning, it's acidic, so you need to alkalize it. It's dehydrated, so you need to hydrate it. And that's what your morning breakfast should be related to, hydrating and alkalizing. So if you understand this acid alkaline, you're tuning into your body. All of this requires knowing your body and tuning into it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take any time at all before you begin to realize my body's talking to me. It's telling me a lot of stuff.
How else can you get alkaline in the morning or at any given time of the day? Do you do water and lemon, or what is one of your key?
Well, you're dehydrated, so it's really good first thing in the morning to wake up and have several glasses of water. Before you eat or do anything, drink 2, 3, 4 glasses of water and put minerals in them.
Okay.
Because minerals are alkalizing. So
Okay.
right there with a glass of water, you're hydrating and alkalizing.
Yeah.
And then I always like for people to take in a probiotic juice is what I call it, where you take one of our probiotic liquids and put something real sour into it, like pomegranate juice or acai berry juice or one of the real sour fruits. There's no sugar in them. Like Genesis Today, for example, makes fruit juices with acai and sea buckthorn. And,
so you
can pour a little bit in there and put a little stevia to sweeten it. And then now you're actually getting an adrenal tonic, because those little sour juices immediately wake up the adrenals. So now you've got some energy, because that's the other thing you're wanting in the morning, which is why people run down and
get the coffee,
Get the coffee, yes, or have the Pop-Tart or something for some sugar. They're going to have energy, but it's not a good way to do it.
No,
and so, that the probiotic juice is a really good thing. Now you've also put a lot of good bacteria in your body, and you're ready to start eating for the day.
So that brings us to then the other principle of food combining. So just give us an overview of what that is.
Well, if you really know the digestive tract, it's very really just common sense that it's not designed to eat complex meals. And so let's say it's Sunday and you go out to the restaurant and have this big smorgasbord and you're going to help yourself to everything and a dessert. Try to digest that. That's cruel. That's a cruel thing to do to your digestive tract. The digestive tract likes things simple, and as we get older, or if you have digestive problems, which some people do from the very beginning of their life, you got to keep the meal very, very simple. So when you're having protein, you want to have a small amount of protein and a lot of vegetables and fermented vegetables, and you can also have sea vegetables. But those all combine really well together. And then if you're having a grain, or we prefer for people to have grain like seeds, you'd have say the quinoa or the millet is a grain like seed. You want to have those with vegetables, but you wouldn't put this is what we do all the time, you wouldn't have a piece of like a hamburger in between two chunks of bread. You know, that's bad food combining. And it's very hard for the stomach to digest that, and the rest of
because it digests grains differently than it digests proteins.
Well, yes, and it's just it's different enzymes are working, and it's just too much to ask the stomach and the small intestine, that's where the digestion's happening, to do that. So make the meal simple. Like if you're having fruit, have it all by itself, because it's going to digest very quickly. In about 30 minutes, it's in the stomach and out. So, wait 30, 45 minutes before you eat something else and have your blueberries or whatever, strawberries by themselves.
By themselves.
Or with other vegetables. Like if you make a smoothie in the morning.
Oh, you can do vegetables.
You can put some fruit, like say frozen berries, in with a lot of vegetables. And that's great to do that too. Or a green apple and with a lot of healthy vegetables. That's perfect food combining too.
So it's fruits and vegetables are always to be done separately.
Well, ideally, fruits usually should be done alone.
Okay.
But
you can do a
the
little
exception
bit. Okay.
would put a small amount into a green smoothie.
But you would do vegetables with protein, and then grains by themselves.
With
protein.
grains should be with vegetables.
With vegetables,
not with protein. Grains with vegetables. And then what about beans? Because we don't encourage people to do beans and lentils and things like that in the beginning because they're very hard to digest. But later on, if you want to add them in, because they do provide fiber, and the fiber feeds the bacteria in your gut. But then you should have them by themselves. Like you would have your lentils with just vegetables and fermented vegetables or ocean vegetables, or have a big stew, like a lentil stew with a bunch of vegetables in it. That you're going to digest well.
Going to have an opportunity to do a cooking segments later on, and you'll be able to see Donna prepare a lot of these by herself, which is going to be great. Okay, so the last one, the 80-20 principle and the principle of cleansing. So we touched a little bit on cleansing, but what is the 80-20 principle?
Well, if you're going to sit down and eat, and you're putting food on your plate, it's better to put a small amount of protein, and 20% or so of the meal would be protein, and the rest would be vegetables. Or if you're having quinoa or millet or rice or oatmeal or oats or something. So later on, when you're having a meal like that, you would 20% would be your grains, grain like seeds, 80% vegetables. If you eat that way, you're going to digest your food very well, very, very well. And it's just a good rule of thumb to follow. And then there's two parts to this one. If you are eating, you want to eat until your stomach's about 80% full. We don't eat mindfully, and we need to. It's such an important thing we're doing. We need to be chewing really well and swallowing, and maybe having something warm. So many of us need a little warm tea to sip on, or a warm soup to sip on to help that food go down. Many of us need digestive enzymes to help us digest in the stomach and the small intestine. But we don't eat mindfully, and we don't even choose. Some people just swallow.
And that's the idea of fast food, because we're running and we're doing while we're eating. And
that's a big problem today. But we also didn't even pay attention to our stomach or the quantity that we're eating. And so I always tell people, just go up to about 80%, leave some room at the top for your digestive enzymes and your poor stomach to work properly. And if you're hungry in another hour or two, come back and eat have more
rest,
of
yeah.
everything. And eat 6 little meals a day if you want, but don't eat a whole lot at one time.
Okay. And so we have a graphic here that shows what this 80-20 principle looks like. We just showed it, but this is what it is it's alkaline-forming foods, and then the 20% is the acid-forming foods, and that makes...
Small amount, yeah.
That
shows the acid-alkaline principle. That little graphic shows, in a nutshell, what body ecology is. You know, we have many people over the years look at body ecology and say, oh, that's too difficult. It's actually really super simple, but it looks difficult because we have so much information.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the information. You can just eat the way we suggest.
Yeah.
But the information is for those people who really, really want to know their body and why they're eating this way. We have that information.
So there's recipes, and we're going to get to all of that. But if you were just talking to someone who's just hearing this for the first time, what would you do if you went into the average person's kitchen? What would you tell them to get rid of that they're never, ever going to need to use or eat again?
Well, I'd definitely say throw all the bad fats out. You know, any food that has the bad fats in it, so the trans fats, like
Salad
soybean
dressings.
oil and refined sunflower and safflower oil and cottonseed and canola oil. So many people recommend canola oil, but canola oil is a very bitter tasting oil if it's unrefined. So what they do is they refine it, they bleach it and deodorize it and refine it. And now all the fatty acids are gone, and they say, oh, it's good. It's actually genetically modified too. So
is it corn? Canola?
What do I think?
I know.
No. It's actually a seed.
It's a seed.
Canola,
Okay.
Yeah. Rapeseed. It's called rapeseed. So that wasn't even attractive either. So they changed the name to canola because he wants to buy rapeseed. But
I never knew what a canola was. Okay. What about vegetable oil?
refined.
How do you get oil from vegetables?
Well, that is corn oil.
That is corn oil. Okay,
Corn
that's corn
soybean oil. Cottonseed oil. They consider
So
it
just get rid of all of
vegetable oil.
those.
Has to go. It's a really, really bad thing.
Okay.
You don't even, it's doing so many things that are bad for the brain, for the hormones, everything. It's got to go. And then I would say, look at all the things that have sugar in them and get rid of them. And you might say, well, let's say you can't do that right away. So at least start reducing them back and cutting them out. And then the third thing I would say is, well, look at the salt in your kitchen. You want to replace the refined salt that you're using to a good quality sea salt. Like I like the Celtic sea salt. And
do you like some of the Himalayan salts?
You know, you have to watch real carefully with Himalayan salt because it got so popular that a lot of Himalayan means really Pakistan. And so a whole lot of people started mining salt out of these mines all over Pakistan, and the mineral content isn't good. I know the mineral content of Celtic sea salt is very good because they constantly monitor every batch that comes in from France. It comes from the ocean. It's very clean and pure. So I feel safe with that one. And then, there are some pink salts out there that are okay.
So in terms of the oils, get rid of all of the saturated fats and put in olive oil. Is peanut oil okay or no?
No.
No? Okay, so olive oil is really the best.
That would be considered kind of a vegetable oil too.
Okay, yeah. All right, and then...
all of those are refined. We eat oils to get the fatty acids or the antioxidants in them, and they don't have fatty acids or antioxidants. They're like plastic. And the body doesn't want them.
Doesn't recognize it, just stores it as fat, basically.
Yeah, it's actually a poison. It's another poison to our body that we're always poisoning anyway.
Okay, so why enhance that? So replacing that with vegetable oils, reduce the amount of sugars, and then take the table salt out and put in a Celtic sea salt, something that's mineral-based, that's mineral-rich.
Minerals. That's why we eat sea salt, it's from the minerals.
And so that would mean throw away the salad dressings, get rid of the ketchup, because most of those are high in sugar and high in saturated fat, right?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then what about butter? Do you you like ghee a lot, don't you?
I find for sure way more people tolerate ghee than they do butter. But butter is very good. It's just meant to be, it is saturated fat. And if you're using butter, use a little dollop on top of your steamed broccoli, but don't like pound it down. I mean, some people are really priding themselves on eating a whole bunch of butter, like a stick a day.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
That's dangerous for most people.
Okay, so let's take a look. We're going to take a look at a video that gives us kind of an overview of what the Body Ecology diet looks at, and Donna's going to tell you a little bit more here. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Donna Gates, creator of Body Ecology, a natural system of health and healing that helps you lose weight, look younger, and build your immune system by improving the way you eat. Body Ecology grew out of years of research, observation, and experience. Today we have the support and collaboration of doctors and nutritionists from around the world. Body Ecology was created by studying modern medicine, ancient Chinese medicine, and naturopathy. These ancient systems of healing need to be modified in a way that will work for your body today. For example, 100 years ago, you wouldn't have had the toxins in your bodies that you have today. All of these ancient systems have been incorporated and refined into our new bio-optimal approach to nutrition. Body Ecology allows your body to operate the way it was designed to function naturally. A bio-optimal diet like ours builds your immune system, it protects you against diseases such as cancer and diabetes, everything down to the common cold. It helps you stay and look younger, increases your mental awareness, gives you energy, and helps you achieve your ultimate fat to muscle ratio. We do this simply with food as the foundation for all this wellness. It's endless what starts to happen when your body is in balance. I decided years ago if I were going to create a system of health and healing, it would have a diet that tasted great, and the Body Ecology diet really does. But remember, we're much more than a diet. We're really a way of life. We have the most amazing cutting-edge information. If you are struggling with weight loss, cancer, autism, diabetes, or you want to prevent and reverse aging, visit our website, bodyecology.com. And thank you for watching.
Great. So this is something that gives us an idea of what to do on a daily basis. So what does a day in the life of Body Ecology look like? What does that look like?
It's really very simple. If that's all you want to know about Body Ecology, you just do this. You wake up in the morning, like I mentioned before, and you have your glass of water. You want to alkalize and hydrate. That's your goal. And so you have your glass of water with minerals.
Okay.
Not just one, like 2, 3, 4 is even better.
And you have a Body Ecology mineral we'll talk about later.
And then we have, the next thing is you do need energy. So I like to do the probiotic juice, and then you're also putting the good bacteria down in your gut. You can make that probiotic juice with one of our probiotic liquids, or you can make coconut kefir, or even buy coconut kefir and make it with that. You get 3 or 4 ounces of the fermented liquid with maybe just a few spoonfuls of the pomegranate juice or the acai. They're very strong and concentrated. You don't need much. If you want it sweet and don't like sour so much, you can put some stevia in there. Drink that. Start making yourself a smoothie. A smoothie in the morning is excellent because I really do believe that we should have a lot of vegetables, a variety, and we also do need raw vegetables too. But if you have digestive problems, you probably aren't going to digest raw. Also, but if you put them in a blender and you blend them, like I have a Vitamix, thank God.
Yeah.
I think that everybody should have some type of high-speed blender.
blender.
If you have to save and save and save, get one. You'll have it forever. And they do a fantastic job because you can put in things like cucumber and celery and zucchini and lettuce and herbs like mint and cilantro or basil, whatever your thing is that you love, a touch of arugula. You can start, you can add a little bit of oil. Like lately I've been adding the medium chain triglyceride brain sustain that Bulletproof makes. It's a medium chain triglyceride oil, wakes the brain right up. It's amazing. And it's also immediately digested in the liver. And it's good for losing weight, and also it's a wonderful little, it thickens it a little bit, but it's a good way to get this oil in your body, and it doesn't have any flavor really.
It's good to take during the winter too, which is
well, it's really good for the thyroid. So it's going to warm, and we need to warm. The thyroid warms our body, and it starts our metabolism working well. I usually, again, I like to follow sort of an 80-20 rule, or if someone really has candidiasis very badly, a 90-10 rule. So 80 or 90% of your smoothie is vegetables. And 10% or 20% max would be fruit. And the fruit should be sour, like in the berry family, or pineapple and apple and ginger, or just green apple. It's surprising. It tastes really good. I mean, and if you don't love it the minute, the first one you have, you soon grow to love this fresh. I mean, it's an incredible way to get a whole lot of vegetables in your body early in the day. So even if you're not so great the rest of the day, at least you start the day. And the other thing about them is juices spoil very quickly if they don't have fiber. You're taking the fiber out.
Okay.
And so they spoil quickly, and they also metabolize quickly. In other words, they go in immediately into your body and usually make the person too acidic. So if you're gonna juice, put something back in to replace the fiber that slows down the assimilation, like half of an avocado. I mean, take your juice and put it in the blender and put some other things in it, like the medium chain oil that we just talked about from Bulletproof, or the an avocado. You can put an avocado, but blend that all up and drink it right away because it's going to spoil fast.
I see.
But the nice thing about a smoothie is it doesn't. 2 days later, I would prefer people drink at least half of it one day and the other half the other, and then make fresh again. It's better, ideally better for you to do that. But if you can't, your schedule is tight. You can make your smoothie at night, put it in the. You put it in a glass jar in the refrigerator and drink it the next morning, or grab it and take it to work and drink it in a little while. You know, they're very flexible that way, so they can be kind of a fast food for you. Make it on Monday and you have it again on Tuesday. Make it again on Wednesday and you have it for Thursday, and so on.
Does the high-speed blender break down any of the cellulose or any part of it?
It's way superior for breaking it down and making it more digestible.
Okay, all right, great.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, well, and then towards your evening and your meals, you go more towards what we talked about earlier with the proper food combining and the acid-alkaline balance. And that gives you
some people do really, really super well on whey protein, and it's popular. Now, if you can get a real high-quality, undenatured whey protein, I often tell people to take the whey protein and put it with one of our, or both of our, we have a product called Super Spirulina Plus, which is an amazing product. It's so few people understand what that's doing. It's rich in B12, rich in folate. And a lot of people know spirulina is good, but spirulina isn't digestible unless it's fermented. So this little jar of ours is fermented for 6 weeks, and it's an amazing source of protein, because when you ferment something, you increase its bioavailability hundreds of times. So you can look at this other jar that says, 19, 20 grams of protein. This is way more because you're assimilating so much of these proteins. And the Super Spirulina Plus tastes fine with the whey protein. I've actually got a bunch of college kids on it, surprisingly. And they shake it up, and you know, they're guys and they're into building their muscles, but that's what whey protein does. It increases glutathione and helps you detoxify, and it's really great for building muscles.
It's like a green milk kind of thing.
Yeah.
After you mix it all together.
Yeah, and it tastes great. You can put a couple drops of stevia, but a lot of times the whey proteins come sweetened with stevia. And then I like for people also, often many people do well on eggs. And eggs are fantastic brain food. So you want to take in protein in the morning. The brain needs to be awakened with protein.
You're okay with the yolk, not just the whites?
Well, actually, I tell people mostly take the yolk. So if you're going to scramble the eggs, take 1 whole egg and 2 yolks. So you're getting 3 eggs, but you're getting mostly yolks. And scramble those up and put a little butter or ghee in your pan. And when that's melted, pour in your scrambled eggs. And when they're... actually, at that point, I usually sprinkle in something called herbamari. I love that seasoning. It's mostly herbs with a little bit of sea salt. It's great in eggs. It's great in everything.
Yep.
And it's, I actually cook with Celtic sea salt, and I finish things with the herbamari. So, but in this case, you don't need much for the eggs. So sprinkle a little herbamari and melt the butter, and then pour in the eggs. And when the eggs start sticking to the pan, just gently move them away. One of the mistakes people make with protein is they overcook it, and you can't digest it. So when you're cooking your eggs, you want them very softly scrambled. So watch real carefully. When they start to cook, pick the pan off the heat, because now the pan is really hot. And you can just scramble them that way in the pan without being right directly on the heat. And when you see that they're just about done, you take them out of the pan, finish stirring them in the bowl. In other words, you're really mindful to not overcook them. That will make them more digestible. And I've watched people, people send me, when they do consultations, their allergy test, and they always have eggs on them.
Right.
But then I find that if they eat the eggs with a little bit of vegetable and some fermented vegetables, they digest them just fine, or take some digestive enzymes like hydrochloric acid with pepsin, so they're digesting that protein. They're fine with them. You can feel the difference in your stomach.
And it doesn't affect cholesterol or anything that eggs would...
No, that's a real dumb myth.
Tell me why.
Somewhere along the way, because our brain needs that cholesterol. Our ovaries need to make the hormones. Our hormones are made from cholesterol. We need that kind of fat in our body.
Okay.
It also has choline. Eggs have choline. Very important nutrient for the brain. If we're going to keep our brains healthy as we age, and we get to be... So what's going to happen? We're going to have, right now, we've got a lot of aging people. And tons of baby boomers are crossing 65 every year. And what's going to happen is we're going to have all these people living a long time, but they're not going to have a brain. They're not going to have a good memory.
The way that they're working.
And so what a mess that's going to be. So simple things like the medium chain triglyceride oil.
Huge.
The eggs. You've already put some great brain stuff in your body. So the brain needs fats and proteins and minerals. And you're already well on your way to feeding your brain.
Well, this is great, because this gets it started in an incredible way. And I've learned so much more that I knew even before this interview. And I've interviewed you several times. You've shared great
I'm
information.
always learning more.
You're always
and I'm always
sharing
coming
more.
across great new products, which I like to share that information with. They won't find these products normally.
Right. Thank you so much, and I hope you learned as much as I did. And thank you so much, Donna. We will be back with more information from Donna Gates. Thank you so much. And as always, I invite you to stay aware.